language, science, culture, history, art. This is Fire on the Table. Konnichiwa! Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of Fire on the Table. Today's topic is really important for those students and professionals just like me because, we are doing a lot of stuff, right? And one of the stuff that we do during online class, our activities, right, is writing. And there are many times that writing is already part of our daily tasks, right? Our teacher asks us to write essays, reports, reaction papers, research, and so much more. So we always write, and write, alright? So, and I know many of you will be answering this. Yes, that's totally right. That's correct. We always do it, right? So the question today is, what should be the basic uh, features of our write-ups, especially for academic writing, because we are exposed in academic situations, especially those who are students, right? And also for professional write-ups, for those who are professionals. Okay, so we will be answering that question today. All right, because the far on the table today is the features and aspects of academic and professional writing. All right, so we have different features and aspects of academic and professional writing. We have a lot, but today we're going to talk about the main features that we should really know. Okay, so these are the basic features. First, we will talk about formality. We will be also having complexity, objectivity, impersonality. We will also be having explicitness, hedging, and precision. Alright, so we will be having this one by one in order for us to understand it further. Alright, so let's start with formality. Alright, so formality, by definition, it follows rules, forms, and conventions of writing. It also provides the readers all the information they need to understand the meaning of the text. Meaning it follows the strict rule of writing. Alright? So remember what your teachers taught you about the subject-verb agreement, correct capitalization, punctuation, and the use of pleasing words used by the professionals. These are all being followed in formal writing. Okay? Or we can say that this feature obey the standard norm of language. Okay? So, and the aspect of formality could also pertain that your write-up was written competently or in a very professional manner. Okay? So this feature tell us what should we do in order for us to clearly and accurately convey the messages that we would like to tell to our audience or readers. And as according to Academic Writing Pro, it should be written without any degree of ambiguity rather. So meaning, everything should be understandable. Okay? So how can we prevent ambiguity in our write-ups? We need to follow different standards, okay, in order for us to prevent it. And the first thing that we should follow is we should prevent using contraction. So what do we mean by contraction? Contraction means we shorten the different kind of words, all right? Or we create a shortened form of the word. Some letters or some sounds of the words are being omitted for us to create a shorter version of the word or the words. Okay? Let's have an example for us to see what's really contraction is. So we have here, isn't it? Okay? So instead of saying is not, we use isn't it. So we should avoid this. We should also avoid using were. Okay? We should write it in a way like this. We are. Okay? We should also avoid this y'all. Alright? We should write it completely. You should write it like you all. Alright? So we should avoid these contraction. And we have a lot more examples of contraction aside from this. We also have don't, right? For do not, diba? So we have those different kind of contraction. You just need to avoid that in order for you to make your write-up a formal write-up. Alright? Next is you should also avoid chatty spoken style. Okay? And what do we mean by chatty spoken style? Chatty spoken style is pertaining to words like fab, haya, gana. So instead of saying fabulous completely, we say fab. Instead of saying hello, we say haya, things like that. Or instead of saying going to, we use gonna. So these words should be avoided in formal writing, okay, in academic writing, because these are categorized as lower form of language and usually called as colloquial or slang language. Okay, we need to avoid those. Okay, we need to use the highest form of language, which is the formal language. We should also avoid idioms and cliché. So what do we mean by idioms? Idioms are figurative languages that are most of the time confusing. Okay, many people fail to fully understand idioms because the meaning of the phrases cannot be just defined literally. Okay, for example, let's have an example. Lend an ear. Okay, so this is one of the examples of idioms. When we say lend an ear, if you're going to define it literally, meaning it could pertain to you giving an ear to someone. Okay, literally, maybe you cut off your ear and then you give it to someone. All right, so could be the literal definition of it, but since it's an idiom, the meaning of lend an ear is to listen. Okay, to listen to someone. All right. Also, we have cliches. Alright, so cliches are the phrases or opinions that we tend to overuse. Like in every situation that we can use it, we will use it. And that's why we overused it. Okay? For example is this one, getting a second wind. Alright? Um, Getting a second wind could mean you're trying to show energy or enthusiasm even if you are already tired after doing some rigorous works. For example, let's say that you're a student and you have read a lot of modules, or you tried, or your task, but the task given to you by the teacher is to read the modules and answers the different tests there or activities there, and you have done that, but you still try to get a second wind to do the household chores. So meaning to say, you still find energy, okay, to do the household chores even if you are already tired doing your academic tasks. Okay, so that's cliches. Alright, so that's one example of the cliches. Idioms and cliches are sometimes very relative to each other because many of these words are all in figurative language, no? Meaning, you cannot really give a literal meaning to it. Alright? So, the phrases or the sentences could mean something else aside from the literal meaning of the words. Alright? And these are being overused. Okay? Since it gives us a different meaning, and academic writing don't like that, don't like ambiguity, so we should never use these kind of language. Alright? The idioms and cliches. We should prevent it. Rather, we should prevent ourselves from using it. Alright? Also, we should be preventing ourselves to use abbreviations. Okay? So, what do we mean by abbreviation? So, abbreviation is the shortened form of the word or the phrase. So, let's have here examples like this one. Instead of writing the whole word Monday, we just use mon. Alright? Or instead of writing the whole word December, we use des. Alright? This. Alright? We need to avoid it. Alright? We need to avoid uh, um, those terms. Alright? The shortened terms. Okay? Like mon, this, right? Thurs, right? Fry, just to shorten the word. We should never use it. Alright? Because in formality, we should use always the complete term. Again, we might confuse our readers if we are just going to use the shortened version of the word, because the shortened version of the word might pertain a different meaning in other situations. Okay? So make sure that you use the complete term, alright? So that the readers will instantly or immediately understand what you are saying. Okay? Alright. So, alright. So the next is complexity. This feature of academic writing is saying that written language is relatively more complex than spoken language. Also, this is saying that written language has more varied vocabulary, and it uses more noun-based phrases than verb-based phrases. Let's have examples of this so that we will be able to understand this complexity. Let's have this one. So we have for spoken language and we have for written language. Let's compare the spoken language and written language. Well, as you can see here, sometimes spoken language has more words than the written language. Okay, so let me just read the sentence. The cities in Switzerland had once been peaceful, but they have changed, or rather, but they changed when people became violent. Alright, so that's the spoken language. Now we have here the written language. The written language, it says there, violence changed the face of once peaceful Swiss cities. Okay? As you can see here, uh, just like what I had mentioned a while ago, the spoken language has more words, more varied words than the written language. Why? If you will analyze in these sentences, both has same thought and some or the subject is actually just the same as well. Alright? But they were approached differently. In the spoken language, the subject was not mentioned immediately. And the subject here is violence. Alright? The main thought is violence. The speaker in the spoken language made an introduction first before he said the topic violence. Right? Or violent. Meaning in spoken language, there are times that we are not going straight to the point. Meaning, in Tagalog, maraming ligoy. Okay? However, in written language, we must state directly the subject. Why? Because we need to consider the economy of the words. Or simply in writing, the more brief your write-up is, but with complete substance, the better. Okay? Also, look at this example. This one. So, for spoken language, we have this sentence, because the technology has improved, it's less risky than it used to be when you install them at the same time. It doesn't cost so much either. In written form, it was written like this. Improvements in technology have been reduced the risk and high costs associated with simultaneous installation. Okay, as you can see here, we in academic writing or in the written form, we are going straight to the subject. We are um, saying the subject immediately. In the first part of our idea, we are already mentioning our subject. But in case of spoken language, we can have different introductions, of different forms of introductions before we say the subject. All right. So in the feature of complexity, we must make sure that we are going straight to the point. Okay? Mention immediately the subject and give the idea about the subject, or give the details about the subject. Okay? So, look at this example again. Look at the difference between the spoken and written language, and see how the subject was stated. Try to analyze it by your own self. Did you see the difference? I hope so. Now let's have the third one. The third one is objectivity. Alright? By definition, it is about giving emphasis on the information you want to provide and argument you want to create. Also, this is pertaining to using facts, credible evidences, and resulting logic. Let's have an example of this so that we will be able to understand this better. Okay? So we have here statements to compare to show objectivity. Let's have the examples. So we have two sides here, the thumbs down and the thumbs up statements. Okay? And according to objectivity, or the feature objectivity, we should never follow, or we should never use in academic writing the words or the statements here on the thumbs down side. And we should follow the statements, or we should use the statements on the thumbs up side. Okay? Because based on the idea of objectivity, we must not show or state things based on our opinion, but rather we must state things like it's a fact and free from someone's bias. Okay, for example, on the thumb side, rather thumbs down side, okay, the author literally said here in the first statement, in my opinion, this is a very interesting study. So that's already violating the of the standard of objectivity. The author literally said, in my opinion. And when we say that, that's already saying that we are basing it, or the author is basing his statements on his or her own perspective. And we should never use these terms like in my own opinion or I believe, because we cannot declare something just based on our perspective and expect that everybody will believe in it, right? So we must be using this statement like this. This is a very interesting study. Why? Because it's sounding like it came from a point of view of many people or general public, and it was formally and strongly declared that is truly, or the topic is truly interesting. And the best part is it's not coming from an individual bias, because you did not involve someone here. Okay, you did not say that it's coming from your own opinion, it's coming from your friend's opinion, right? So there is no bias in this statement. Okay? Therefore, objectivity is the feature that shows neutrality. Okay? Or in Tagalog, walang kinikilingan. Okay? So, we should follow these statements. Alright? It is, aside from this is a very interesting study, we could also use the statement, it is easy to forget how difficult life was 50 years ago. In Daniel Pink's book, Drive presents his impressive research on motivation. As you can see, clearly, the authors did not use any person to show their own perspective or to give their own opinion. Alright? So they have just used a general statement that shows neutrality. Okay? Alright. We also have the fourth feature, which is impersonality. And impersonality, this is defined as characteristically, academic writing has an objective tone. Okay? That is the language of written text sounds independent from the writer and the reader. Well, this one is very much related to objectivity because you are also eliminating the involvement of bias. Alright? You should never impose involvement of your bias. Okay? So, how can we show impersonality in our writings? Let's have its standards. In impersonality, we have this first standard, which is using passive voice. Alright, so as we all know, we have different voices in writing. Alright, we have active voice, we have passive voice. When we say active voice, let's differentiate it, alright, so that you will be able to understand it. When we say active voice, if you can still remember what your teacher told you before, that when we state things in an active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. So, let's use the definition to explain this statement. So, the dog ate my salad. Okay? The subject here is the dog. And as I have said, um, the subject is the doer of the action. So, meaning to say, the subject have performed something. Okay? So, what did the dog have done? Okay, so the dog ate my salad. Okay, so literally that's pertaining to active voice. Okay, the subject, the dog, have done something, which is he ate my salad. All right, and also we have the passive voice. When we say passive voice, the subject now is not the doer of the action. Okay, so the subject becomes the opposite of the active voice. It becomes the subject becomes the recipient of the action. Okay, so how does it happen? Let's turn this statement, the dog ate my salad, into a passive voice. It will become, my salad was eaten by the dog. So how did it become a passive voice? It became a passive voice because the subject here is the salad. And if you can analyze the statement, something was done to the salad. So meaning to say, that action was done to the salad. Okay? Or it was performed to the salad. And what was that? The salad was eaten by the dog. Okay? See the difference? In active voice, the subject is the one who is performing the action. In passive voice, the subject is the one who is receiving the action, or the one who is becoming the recipient of the action. Okay, so we also have another example here. So the second statement is, we administer the questionnaire. So the subject here is we, and they have done something which they have administered the questionnaire. And if we're going to turn it to a passive voice, it will become, the questionnaire was administered. See? See the difference between active voice and passive voice? Well, in academic writing, for it to become impersonal, we really need to use passive voice. Okay? Alright. So, let's proceed to another standard of impersonality. Alright. So, the next standard is using third person. So, how do we do it? How do we use third person in academic writing? Well, first and foremost, we need to avoid statements like I discovered that or we can see that. As you can see there, we have used first person pronouns like I and we, right? And these should be avoided in writing an academic text, because just like what I have mentioned to you a while ago, impersonality is extremely related to objectivity, and in objectivity it says there that we should not be using our own perspective, or we are not be siding on our first perspective, or we are not using bias, right? Or our own opinion or our own side in stating uh, different statements in our academic write-ups. But rather, we should use third person. Like for this one, instead of using I discover that, we can use research reveals that. So you direct yourself to the object of what you want to say. Okay? Or to the type of writing that you are using. Or uh, to the kind of write-ups that you are doing. Okay? So, you may use those kind of things. Also, instead of saying we can see that, you can say it is evident that. Okay, so when we say it, it's not pertaining to a specific person, right? But rather, it becomes already a third person. So, that is how we put impersonality using third person in our academic write-ups. Also, we have to use things as a subject, which I have mentioned already. So this is like an in-depth explanation or further elaboration of what I have mentioned to you a while ago. For this one, we have here a statement like I interpret the result as. So instead of using I interpret or the personal pronoun I, we can use the results indicate. Alright, so you have used the object result, okay, rather than you yourself as the subject of the statement. You could also use this statement instead of using I show, you can use the object report. Okay, so the report shows. Okay, so you can use those kind of statements in order for you to make your statements more impersonal. Okay, you're not involving yourself directly to the text. Okay, next is the feature explicitness. So what do we mean by explicitness? It means that there is a clear presentation of ideas in the paper, and connection of ideas can be made explicit using signaling words. As we all know, when we are doing an academic writing, all of our ideas from the starting point to the last point should be connected, right? So how we will be able to make sure that our ideas are all connected, okay? And it has a smooth transition. We can do that by using major signposting and linking words and phrases. So what are these major signposting and linking words and phrases? By definition, it is used to signal key aspects of the work, such as the purpose of an academic paper and its structure. It also creates coherence and give the readers direction in by making transitions between sentences and paragraphs. Hence, we must be able to see the different examples of this for us to understand it better. Okay, so we are actually using signpost to introduce something new. Okay, so if you want to introduce something new or an idea, there is something new, you can use these transition words. Okay, like one aspect which illustrates can be identified as the current debate about, illustrates, identifies, highlights, with regard to, with respect to, initially, secondly, finally. Alright, so that is for introducing something new. Alright, we also have continuing an argument with a related point. We can use this furthermore to further understand the role of, and addition, similarly, likewise. We also have for introducing an opposing or alternative idea like however, conversely, in contrast, alternatively, nevertheless, or nonetheless. We also have to link a different point. Alright, so if you have different points, you can link it using these Phrases like having established, it is possible to consider, is one key issue, another of equal, similar importance, or significance is. Alright. We also have this for reintroducing a topic. We have, as discussed or explained earlier, the earlier discussion on can be developed further here, as stated previously, as noted above. We also have for reasoning or summarizing the point. These are the examples. Consequently, as a consequence, accordingly, therefore, it could be concluded that, like that. So these are the examples. So let's have a concrete example where we have used explicitness, all right, or these major signposts or linking words or phrases. Like this one, in this first paragraph, we have, this has sometimes led to dispute between religious and secular clergy, between orders and bishop. Okay, so that's the first idea. But if you want to add more idea to it, like if you want to give example about that situation, about that idea, you can use the linking phrase for example. Like this one. For example, in the northern context, the previous bishop of Down and Connor, Dr. Philbin, refused for more of his period of leadership in Belfast to have Jesuit visiting or residing in his diocese. Right? So, from the first idea, it was smoothly transitioned to the next idea. Alright? So, that's the first example. We also have this one. He is born into a family, he marries into a family, and he becomes the husband and father of his own family. So, if we want to give additional idea from the first statement, you can use the linking phrase in addition. He has a definite place of origin and more relatives than he knows what to do with, and he receives a rudimentary education at the Canadian Mission School. See, we use these different linking words or phrases in order for us to have smooth transition from our first idea and to see the connection of these ideas. If it is for additional ideas or if it is for contradicting the ideas. Okay? We must be using this in order for us to make sure that there is coherence and cohesion in our compositions. Alright? So, aside from explicitness, we also have hedging. Okay? So, hedging is, it pertains to the concept of cautious language and often called vague language. Okay? So, maybe from the definition, you might be confused because, as you all know, in formal writing or in academic writing, we should never use vague language, right? Everything should be understandable. But there are some situations that you cannot really declare something in an absolute form or specifically. That's why, in order for you to be safe, you use these hedging. Okay? So, these are actually acceptable in academic writing as well because there are really some situations where we cannot really declare things in an absolute form. For example, like these words, seem, tend, look alike, appear to be, think, believe, doubt, be sure, indicate, suggest, believe, assume, often or often, sometimes, usually, assumption, possibility, probability, will, must, would, may, might, could, etc. And there's so much more words that we can use for hedging. Let's have examples of this. So, the first one. So, the live stage shows may seem overly ascetic and self-denying to most women today. As you can see there, the author cannot really declare if they have really have that situation or the lives that they have chosen are really like that situation because maybe for some people they think that it's like that, but maybe for some other people they cannot see it just like that, right? So the author may use the word seem, which is could be synonymous to the word looks like, all right, or somehow, because we cannot really declare that absolutely it's their situation. Okay, we also use these words like certainly, suggested, and maybe possible. See, we use this to be safe in our statement, because when we say or when we give information, and if it is not really acceptable by all, okay, we can use these terms, okay, or if it is not really believed by everyone, we can use this term, all right, in order for us to be the safe side of writing, okay, for us, we not to declare something uh, that's not 100% acceptable by everybody, okay. So aside from hedging, we also have precision. Okay, so precision is the last feature of academic writing that we will be featuring here in our episode. Well, precision is defined as in academic writing, facts and figures are given precisely, or everything should be in a very precise way of stating. Okay, or many of the parts of it should be precise. When we say precise, we are giving the correct or accurate figures. We are giving the facts, the real facts, okay? The specific facts about something. Let's have an example for us to see it. So, this one. Those highlighted words, okay, are part of precision, all right? Because the author have used specific numbers, they have used specific dates, okay, or specific terms, okay, so that's precision. When we use specific dates, specific figures, specific number, specific terms, all right, for us to give precise information to our readers, then we are hitting the standard of precision. For example, here, let's read the example. In total, how many eruptions were recorded in Taal volcano history? There's a total of 34 eruptions recorded within over 400 years with varying characteristics. See, from the first statement, you can see already that the author have used specific numbers like 34 eruptions, all right, recorded, and there it happened already in over 400 years. See, specific, accurate or precise information. All right. Also, in the second paragraph, we can see there that the first was in 1572. So the author have given us the specific first event of the eruption and also the year when it happened. All right. And also, we have here, and its biggest eruption was recorded in 1754. See, still specific year. All right. So that is how we put precision to our writing. All right. And those are the different features of academic writing that we really need to follow in order for us to make sure that our write-up is free from any bias and it's formal, and we are making sure that everything is well balanced and accurate, well written, well sourced, and we have made sure that we are refraining from confusing or ambiguous languages. Okay? So, in order for you to make sure that these are being achieved by your write-up, you can always check this video, okay, to check again if you are really achieving those standard, okay, to know again, to review, all right, to make sure that the things that I've stated here are in your academic write-up. All right, and also you can research more about this in the internet. We have a lot of references here. You can see those things that I've mentioned, many of the things that I've mentioned through these references that I have listed. All right, so these are the things that, or the references of, or the sources that I've used in this presentation. Well, I hope you have learned a lot in our episode for today, because this is really relevant for you, for your academic writings, right? And since we are so much involved in different academic tasks, and there are many times that we need to write on academic write-ups, right? And this will surely help you. All right, thank you so much for watching this episode, and see you again in our next episode. Thank you. Bye.
Language, science, culture, history, art. This is Fire on the Table.